Welcome to WP-Tonic, episode 178. Today we're talking the most essential e-commerce plugins for WordPress. Before we get into today's show, I'd like to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Liquid Web. For years, Liquid Web has been known as a managed WordPress hosting company with tons of options. And recently, they've designed a managed WordPress offering that's perfect for mission-critical sites. If you're running a website that your business depends on, and you're looking for improved performance, maximized uptime, and incredible support, Liquid Web is the hosting partner that you've been looking for. Every Liquid Web managed WordPress customer also has iThemes Sync integrated into their management portal. This means you can update several sites with a single touch. Now, if you sign up today using the discount code WP-Tonic33, you'll get a 33% discount on your hosting for the next 6 months. So visit liquidweb.com/WordPress to get started and use the code WP-Tonic33. All right, now we got the regular WP-Tonic posse. Here's the core of the team. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves for first-time viewers, and we'll start with Jackie, who was in our last episode.
Thank you. I'm Jackie D'Elia. I am a web developer based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I am also the host of Rethink.fm.
Which is an exceptional podcast, a forward-thinking podcast for front-end development and WordPress development. Go check it out. And then we also have Sallie.
Hi, I'm Sallie Goetsch, the WP Fangirl and organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup in Oakland, California.
Whoop! What's the next topic at the East Bay?
We're doing Flexbox and CSS Grid.
Sweet.
Ooh,
yeah.
I would like to go to that.
Very timely.
So it's based on my Flexbox presentation from WordCamp Sacramento last year, but I'm doing I'm just starting to work with Grid, and so I will have some basic information on that yet.
Sounds great.
And then also my co-host, Jonathan.
Oh, hi there, folks. I'm the founder of WP-Tonic, so blame this madness on me. I'm based in Reno. Oh, God, the cat's purring. I even got the cats like me, folks. Right. That wasn't me, folks. That's not me, actually. But please do not email me and say, no, I sound like a cat. So I'm based in Reno, and we're your trusted WordPress partner, aren't we, John?
Most excellent. And I'm John Locke. My business is Lockedown Design, and I do custom WordPress development and local SEO for all those blue-collar businesses trying to get ahead. Before we get into today's main topic, this was a pretty decent news week for WordPress, and kind of the top story of the week. This kind of came out of left field, but Sucuri Security was acquired by GoDaddy. And in following the trend of the previous companies, like Manage WP and WP Curve, they have also been absorbed into the GoDaddy family. So, Jackie, thoughts on this acquisition?
Well, first off, it definitely seems like they have a plan, and they are going after key assets to beef up their WordPress reputation in the space. I definitely think that's part of it. I really do. I think that they want to be a player. They want to do better. Whether or not that all turns out that way, I guess time will tell. The beauty of our space is it's open source, and if something goes sideways with one, there will be somebody else that pops up and creates something equally awesome. So I'm curious, though. I don't really, I guess, you're not going to know the whole backstory of why that happened. But I'm curious why Sucuri wanted to sell to GoDaddy, and maybe what the public reasons and some of the private reasons, they may be different. They may not be. So I think for however you feel, GoDaddy is going to be a player in the WordPress space, and they're flexing their muscles and buying up things that we all use. So in some ways, we're going to have to figure out how to work with that. And you know, I was in GoDaddy the other day for a client, and I was working in the dashboard and doing some things. I noticed it looked a little cleaner and not so cluttered and crazy. And then I was thinking, well, maybe they are making some changes in there. And I'm probably not the expert to ask on that at all, because I don't have any hosting with them. I'm not in there at all. I don't really know what's going on in the inner workings. I use Managed WP, and I haven't seen any change in that so far. I don't typically use Sucuri unless there's an issue for a client. I may have like their free plugin that I'm using in some places, but other than that, no. But I definitely think that those, you know, prime WordPress assets that are out there, GoDaddy has the money and the muscle to bring those into their family, and I think it's just part of the plan.
Well, definitely. Those are some, you know, really good statements. And one thing that you said is I do have like domains through them, and a lot of my clients do. Their UI has definitely improved. The interface is definitely a lot cleaner than it was in years past. I use GoDaddy Pro to kind of access client accounts. I don't use Managed WP except on the forum boards, but you know, it's very interesting because GoDaddy also has SiteLock as part of their family as well. And I guess that Sucuri and SiteLock have been sharing kind of like security information as well to try and help each other out. So it'll be very interesting how this is navigated. And Sallie, I want to ask you something, because I seen you comment this in a forum with the question of Sucuri is kind of a service, but now that they've been acquired by a hosting company, they have existing partnerships with other places like SiteGround and WP Engine, where they do scans, malware scans of client sites as kind of a value add service. And so that begs the question, you know, how is this going to, you know, affect how they deal with other hosting companies going forward? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, you know, I really wondered about that because, you know, it's a little different from the acquisition of Managed WP, because that was kind of an you know, mainly an end user product that either, you know, individuals or you know, developers or agencies use this to, you know, keep their client sites up to date and so on. But that Sucuri had already had partnerships with a number of companies that are competitors of GoDaddy's. And, you know, I just recently got that email from SiteGround saying that they'd, you know, decided to start using Sucuri for their site scans. And so it's kind of like, okay, that's interesting, because it seems like it presents a potential conflict of interest if, you know, a hosting company is using a service owned by a different hosting company. And I don't know what's going to happen. You know, maybe everything will be fine. They'll figure that, you know, these partnerships are bringing them income. There's no reason to change how things operate. And maybe, you know, I think it makes the other hosting companies that are relying on that service more vulnerable. I think those situations are probably at more risk than, you know, if you or your clients have individual Sucuri subscriptions.
Yeah, most definitely. It's an intriguing question, and we'll see how some of these WordPress hosting companies deal with it going forward. Something that I want to ask Jonathan is, I've seen people kind of express in light of this acquisition that if hosting companies, like if all these services get bought up by hosting companies, it will be harmful to the independent developers and companies trying to you know, present services that maybe are competing. What are your thoughts on this? Does this, if hosting companies buy up like all these companies, Is it that going to be bad for the ecosystem or the market?
Yeah, before I answer that really serious question, I just want to state, I just love you, GoDaddy. Everything I said in the past, I take away. You're the best hosting company in the world, and I love you, GoDaddy. And if you want to kill elephants, just go and do it. You know, there's nothing wrong with it at all. But get back to the serious question, John. Well, I think, you know, it's a difficult one to answer. The only thing that came to mind when you were asking it is that obviously a company the size of GoDaddy has enormous resources, which is true. You know, it's got enormous financial and other resources. But on the other hand, it's focused as well, isn't it? You know, security is important to a hosting company, but it's only one part of many issues. So, you know, in the end, it can only take up so much of the managerial consciousness, no matter how important, because they've got many important subjects that they're focusing on. So can where a smaller company that's really focused on one important issue can focus all their attention on that issue. So that's the big question. Can they maintain the standards, and can they maintain that focus, John? When it comes to providing services to other hosting providers, like Sallie pointed out, obviously there is a conflict of interest, and you know, it depends on the contractual basis of those agreements, doesn't it, John? But I would imagine that the other hosting providers that were utilising their services, unless the contractual obligation requires them, they will be looking for other solutions in the near future, John.
Well, that is something that is very interesting, because I do think there are contractual obligations that Sucuri and the various hosting companies that they provide malware scanning for have. And so I guess it depends on who hosting companies are, with Sucuri being part of the GoDaddy family. As far as I know, it looks like they're going to be operating as a separate company, much as Media Temple operates as its own company, even though it's under the GoDaddy umbrella. So we'll see what happens, though I wouldn't be surprised if there are competitors in the security field that crop up for the people who feel more comfortable using an independent operator. But again, you know, whenever there is a security problem, whenever somebody's site is hacked, they are the first people that I point people toward to try and solve that. So that kind of brings us to our second news story, which is Pippin Williamson, the founder of Easy Digital Downloads, Pippin's plugins. He makes a ton of plugins in the space. Recently published an article in which he was explaining why they were rethinking, or why they kind of changed some of the pricing on some of their plugins. And I thought it was a most illuminating article because, as we talked about in previous weeks, the biggest cost, the biggest drain of energy and resource in any sort of development company seems to be support. And Jackie, I wanted to get your thoughts on this article.
Yeah, I wrote a comment on it this morning. So I read it over, wanted to think about it a little bit, because from my perspective, and in my comment, I wrote, you know, I owned a software company for 8 years, and it was before the internet. So completely different space, time, everything. But I had the same challenges that everybody has that does it today, which is support. And back then it was phone support. There was no email yet. There was carbon copy. I could, you know, modem into somebody's computer to upload a file or see something, but it was very time intensive support. I was talking about sustainability in this, that your model, your business model of having something that's sustainable. And in my case, there was a price war going on with my product and another product, and we pretty much were the top two in the space that we were serving US wide. So I ended up getting a lot of customers for very low dollars, and it ended up being, a big support challenge for me. So from that perspective, I was saying that, I chose to sell my company at that time and combine it with the other competitor. So it was a win for both of us. But I often wonder, had I raised my prices at that time and actually created a sustainable model, what would have happened differently at that point? And that was a long time ago, better than 20 years. And so I don't know the answer to that. But I have to say that, what they decided to do was to create a sustainable model. And yes, I realize that some people are going to be shocked about the price increase, and it was unexpected and it wasn't warned, and there were some issues around that. But like he said in there, and he mentioned this at Pressnomics last year when I was there, that you get really burned out. And there are many times you just want to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And if that is the business environment that you're living in and operating in, you could easily choose to discontinue the product. So what I wrote in my comment was, I wonder what kind of outrage there'd be if they had just said we're going to discontinue Easy Digital Downloads instead of, making it sustainable. So I'm in favor of it. I realize that, there are going to be people that didn't budget for it, didn't plan on it costing this much. But I think in the end, if you do not have, if we're, we go to work every day, if it isn't sustainable and you're not happy with what you're doing, then what is the whole reason we're doing any of this for? So my perspective may be, different than a lot, and a lot of the people's perspective is very different. But I was looking at it from my perspective as a software developer back when I was selling a product versus a customer. And I am a customer of EDD. I am going to renew. And I think that, I want to support a sustainable WordPress community. So that's my answer.
Yep. No, well said. Well said. Sustainability is really everything. And, I'm a customer of Pippin's too, as is Jonathan. I have, clients on Restrict Content Pro, which I use quite extensively. But my thoughts are, a lot of this stems from the WordPress economy giving the illusion that everything should be free or like really low priced. And as you know, in proprietary software or even in other open source communities like Drupal, they have figured out a way to position software at, an acceptable price to where things are sustainable. And I think that is something that the WordPress economy has really struggled with. And when it comes to that, if you're a digital creator and you're using something like EDD to run your store and you can't afford a yearly license of $200 or $249, then perhaps you don't have a real business. As Curtis McHale might say, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. Sallie, thoughts on this article?
Yeah, I like the comment about you have a hobby. It amazes me about how people are reluctant to pay for things that will make them money. I mean, it makes perfect sense to be reluctant to pay for something that isn't going to make you money, and then perhaps you don't need to have it. But if you're not making enough from your store to cover that cost, yeah, I don't think it's a very successful store. And support is the big thing, and this is partly why some of the free plugins in the repo end up abandoned, because they were created by somebody who wasn't terribly busy at the time, and then they like graduated and got a job, and suddenly they didn't have so much time and they couldn't keep up with the support. Support is absolutely the biggest cost in software, and and particularly in software for end users. Pippin and Brad Tuinard from Delicious Brains have a podcast together, and I've heard them talk about this before. And Delicious Brains makes plugins for developers, and they don't get a ton of support requests. But EDD and Pippin's other things are mainly meant for end users, and they just have less basic understanding of how to use something. And then, we've heard Pippin talk about, and we get all these support requests related to, people who are using page builders that interfere with, the way Restrict Content Pro works or something like that, where the problem is, the problem is not in their software. It's not like it's a bug they can fix. And, whenever I have raised my rates, the clients that drop out are usually the ones who were the most trouble, right? Because somehow you end up in a situation where the people who pay you least expect the most. And so it's going to upset some people, but I think it's going to achieve, what it's meant to achieve, which is to keep them all happy working on the product.
No, you got to take care of your team. Otherwise, you're not going to have a sustainable product. And something that you said that I want to key in on is the people that drop out are that think that, $100 is too much for something that their business runs on. If they drop out, then not only do you have less support requests, but you're not losing any money. You're spending less on support, and your team morale goes up because you're not dealing with the people that want to build Facebook for, $200. Jonathan, thoughts on this article?
Oh, before that, I want to say, John, I love GoDaddy, and it's great hosting. I've never been frustrated for their technical support ever, John. To get back to the story, it was a fantastic post, and I read it quite extensively last night. And Pippin's a great guy. He came on the show a couple of years ago. I'm going to have to try and get him back if he can spare some time from the support. But he's probably got more time now. He was in a difficult situation, wasn't it? He's an extremely rational individual. So you could tell that he was really struggling because there was no totally black and white answer, and as a very quality programmer, he looks for a kind of the perfect answer. But this is business, and this is just dirty, isn't it? It's grey. But he had to do something, didn't he, John? It wasn't sustainable. It was, what was he like doing $650,000, and they were making like, when you take out all the expenses and that, I don't think there was a lot left, was there? I also think it's cultural. I think some of the responsibility. I think it's. I'm just gonna say it's cultural. Is this, which you touched on about other open source communities. I was involved a little bit with Expression Engine, and which is a hybrid. It's not really open source. It's owned by Alice Labs, and it was owned by Alice Labs, and you had to pay for a license of Expression Engine. It wasn't ridiculously expensive, but then the plugins weren't cheap. They were well coded, and they were and there weren't many. There were some free plugins, but not that many. They were mostly premium plugins that you had to buy, and they certainly weren't cheap. So it depends on community. I think there are some cultural things, but this has also been one of the factors that I think it's been encouraged, John, because it's also been a factor that's enabled WordPress to grow so quickly and take market share, John.
Actually, you know what? You were reading my mind, because that's the exact conclusion that I was coming to, is a lot of the reason why WordPress has 27% market share of all websites on the web is because the barrier to making a site is so low. You can download WordPress for free. You can grab a bunch of plugins from the repo for free. There's free themes. You know, if you want something a little bit more professional, you could grab a $59 theme from ThemeForest, even though it's probably bloated as hell. But the barrier to entry is so low to building a website that's a big part of the reason is there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers. There's a lot of people that are kind of theme customizers, or what Tom McFarlane would call implementers, that are offering services, which is fine. But that's a lot of the growth. But a lot of what you were saying is true. It's fostered this thought that everything should be free, or if it's not free, it should not cost very much. And if you're asking us to pay, you know, anything at all, then oh my God, you know, I can't do that. And that's not reality. Even these free plugins in the repo, somebody has to code those. Somebody has to maintain those and support those. There is a cost. It costs somebody's time, and that's time that they are not, you know, earning a living somewhere else. So there is a cost in open source software, and that's something we need to recognize and maybe, you know, reconcile that fact.
Well, you know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
yeah, go.
You know, like Matt from the Matt Report, other leading voices in the WordPress community have been saying for quite a while that something's got to change, and they've just been blanked off. You know, I don't think their input has been listened to, and for various reasons, probably not most things go around money, really. It doesn't suit the top echelon of the WordPress, whatever you want to call it, to listen to those voices. But I think there is going to be a big shakeout, because if Pippin Williamson, with his background, and he's well known in the WordPress community, and he's a quality individual, if he is struggling with a very popular plugin, with a stable of very popular plugins that he has, and I use his plugin from WP-Tonic's affiliate system. Mm-hmm. If he's struggling like that, it really just shows you that things are really going to have to change, aren't they, John?
Yeah, well, definitely. And EDD was the one that needed to bump up the price, because it was not in line like with the support requests that they were getting from it. And that one was the sharpest percentage increase. But the thing is, you have to have a sustainable business, and that means being able to support it. If that means raising the prices or making a price adjustment to where you can support that product in perpetuity.
Perpetuity.
Thank you. There you go. Yeah,
Our English major.
Oh goodness, yes. But yeah, if you want to go on sustaining your product and supporting it, I mean, sometimes you have to make those adjustments. Anyway, I think we're pressed on time here with the stories, so we're going to go ahead and go to our break, and then we're going to come back with our main topic, which is the most essential, most badass e-commerce plugins that you should have for WordPress. See you after the break. We're coming back from the break, and we're talking our main topic, the e-commerce plugins that you must have, most essential ones that you're going to need for WordPress. I think any discussion has to start with WooCommerce. That seems to be the one that not only has the deepest reach, but kind of has the biggest ecosystem around it as far as extensibility, add-ons, and things of that nature. WooCommerce can handle a lot of things, including handling like physical goods or digital goods, though perhaps it's not the best tool for strictly digital downloads. But I want to ask the panel, what are some of the things that you like about WooCommerce, any extensions, any add-ons that you have found useful for that. Jackie.
Okay. Well, can I start off just talking about something related to this first?
Absolutely.
Just to kind of give some perspective. And it goes back to what we were talking about the other day, about how difficult it can be for people to sort out what plugins to use, what they need. And I think it rolls back to a problem that I've noticed with both, say, Easy Digital Downloads and the WooCommerce site, right? So you go there, if you are a developer, you already have interviewed your client, you know what functionality they need, right? If you're an end user, you may not have figured that out. And when you get there, you have no guide. Neither one do. And I think that it's definitely something that should be there. Something where you can have a grid where you check off functionality that you need for your e-commerce site. And then as you do that, it gives you the list of things that you're going to need to run that site and provide that functionality. Because I think many of us have learned the hard way about building out an e-commerce site, and then you realize client goes, well, how do I update the shipping, the tracking number? Oh, well, you need another plugin for that. And then how do I get the PDF copy of this to print out? Oh, you need a plugin for that. And I think having some type of walkthrough in the beginning about what your needs are for your site. Are you shipping physical goods? Are you, using one of the shipping companies to do this? Do you want to be able to email tracking numbers to your customers? Things like this that you would just go through, and then it would say, for this configuration, here's what we would recommend as far as plugins go. I think they would do a lot better selling the plugins and matching up people who actually needed them with the support that they would need if that was simpler. I think that both of them are built for developers to visit, but a lot of the customers that are going there and purchasing these things are end users trying to build their e-commerce sites themselves. And I think that's where a lot of the disconnect is on those. So just wanted to share my perspective on that and just say, I think both of them need a simplified way of packaging up what you need. They have these all-in-one packages, like this includes all these plugins, this includes those, but it's not necessarily built for what a specific customer's needs are. And it is also a great way to audit what you're going to need, right? So you're going through and you're saying, do I need to provide a tracking number? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? Do I want my store to be able to do this? Do you see a need in the future for your store doing this, or as you grow? And then that can help you better plan, number one, what framework you want to use, and then what plugins you're going to need for it, and what kind of a budget you're going to have for putting this all together.
No, I think you're making some excellent points here. And that's a true fact, like before you even decide on what plugins you're going to use, you do need to have that discovery discussion where you're pinpointing exactly how the operations are going to look backstage, to where you can determine, hey, here's, these plugins that might support that. Let's look at all the requirements that you're going to need to support, and then let's see what's left, and then make a determination. And definitely,
and I just want to point out that it's not only a WordPress WooCommerce aspect that Jackie's pointing out. If you've done any extensive work with Shopify, which is a great hosted platform, that they have a ton, they have their own and a very active third-party directory of plugins, extra services. And my experience with Shopify is really quite easy to get into a very similar situation that Jackie's pointed out with WooCommerce.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very true. It's, any discussion around that is you have to start with, finding out how this is going to work, in the physical space. Like, how are you going to get these orders, and what do you want to have? What sort of, tracking numbers or SKUs are you going to have? Who are you going to ship through? What kind of payment gateways, are acceptable to you? All these things need to be discussed. Shipping is a big one. We ran like a small e-commerce thing over here for a while, and shipping is a big concern. Being able to track SKUs, a lot of the customers that I work with, SKUs are a big thing because
don't forget the taxes.
Oh, and taxes, yeah,
Yes.
That's true. That's very, very true. Every state deals with taxes differently. So depending on what state you live in, you could either get charged. You either have to charge where it's shipping to, or you're charged by where your base of operations is. So yeah, those are all good things to know. And it's
Exactly. There are some states that charge tax on shipping cost versus some states that don't. So you need to know in your own state, like in Texas, the shipping charge is taxable. So when I ran my e-commerce business, and I would have questions from people that were not from Texas that would say, well, why is the shipping taxed? And it's like, well, in Texas it is, and so you have to, it's a very complex topic. And like we were saying, it's not something for a hobby. It's really, if you're going to do it, you need to have a budget, you need to prepare, you need to know what functionality it is you need, and then go find the best plugins that will provide that. And granted, it's not easy to do on your own, whether you're a developer or you're an end user. Sometimes takes a while to sort that out. Now, if you specialize in building e-commerce sites, like, if you're a WooCommerce expert and that's all you do every day, it's going to be a lot easier for you to help somebody sort out the yes and no's of what it is that they're going to need. But it's, for a basic WooCommerce site, you definitely need a payment gateway. You need to be able, if you're shipping physical goods, you need a way to ship that. And you probably need a way to put the tracking numbers in there at the very least. So, you're going to need those plugins to hook that up.
Yeah, I think in a way that the whole ecosystem of both the e-commerce plugins themselves and the extensions for them is predicated on the assumption that, you already know everything you need to know about having a store or a product business. And, if you have a physical store, then you've probably arranged a lot of these things. You know how you have to handle taxes. You may know mainly about how you have to handle the local ones. Because you might be only selling to the people who come into your store, but that you need a seller's permit from the government. That when you have to send those sales taxes in, you already have some kind of a merchant service provider payment processor because you're taking payments. And so if you are coming from that background and you go look at the list of WooCommerce extensions or Shopify extensions, then you'll understand, right? Okay, so I know I need a thing for taxes, and I know I ship through these two people, and so I need the UPS and the USPS calculators, or I know I need the tax add-in. But in a lot of cases, people have just got this idea of, here, that's the, oh, I had this idea to sell something, and, then what? Because it's, I read some article recently about, setting up your e-commerce store in 4 minutes or whatever it was. And that doesn't work so well, because unless you've got all that information down about exactly what you need, and I'm selling a t-shirt, well, how many sizes? Does it come in different colors? Are there discounts for if you buy a bunch of them at once? Figuring out all that stuff is hard work, and people tend to not do it before they dive in.
No, definitely. You know, all those things definitely need to be discovered, you know, beforehand. And then when you get down to, you know, choosing payment gateways, determining the shipping, and it comes to putting the nuts and bolts together. You know, it's determining what platform you're going to go with. Some of the ones that I've encountered before are, of course, WooCommerce. I've done the majority of e-commerce sites on that. I've had a little bit of experience with iThemes Exchange, which is kind of an interesting one. It also has a bunch of extensions, but it's more of a hybrid for physical and digital goods, and definitely worth checking out. The WP e-commerce one is kind of a bare bones e-commerce one. I have not experienced that one at all, but is one that comes up in conversation a lot. And another one that is perfect if you are only selling downloadable or digital goods would be Easy Digital Downloads. But the one that I can really speak to the most is kind of WooCommerce. And when it comes to those, I know that we had a link in Slack that had some plugins here that was 20 must-have WooCommerce plugins. Some of these ones that I've seen on this list aren't being actively supported, so definitely, you know, be careful, analyze like which ones you're using. And one of the ones on this list that would seem pretty useful would be the WooCommerce social login. That one is you can actually log in with Facebook or Twitter or Google. I haven't used this one. Has anybody encountered this one? No?
No.
No. Okay.
You go
Well,
first.
I'm just gonna. You know what? I'm gonna.
Well, let's move forward. Well, I didn't. What about languages? Because the last one I did, and time flies, folks, was almost 2 years ago. That a really big e-commerce job, and they wanted it in Spanish, Portuguese, and English, everything, and it was quite a large e-commerce project, and we couldn't. We didn't actually, shock horror folks, we didn't actually utilize WordPress. We utilized some other system, which I won't mention, and we got the job done, but it was a bit of a nightmare. So what's the support like and the plugin territory around if you wanted a multilingual website, WooCommerce, John?
So when it comes to WooCommerce, they have like a lot of translation strings. I would recommend if you're gonna tackle something that's multi-language, I would either use something like Polylang, or I would use you know, I would look at integration with the WPML, the multi-language. But one of those two usually suffices, because there's two ways you can go with a multi-language site, but usually you're setting up, you know, like a whole separate site that is in that language. That would be using like WPML. That would be what you would use. Now, if you just need to translate strings and have it determine what the language is by, you know, the country that they're in, you could use something like Polylang. If you just need to change like individual strings, you could use something like Say What. And I'll link all those up in show notes. But yeah, definitely probably either like WPML or Polylang would be something that I would look at first.
Yeah, one of the plugins on that list is basically a connector for WooCommerce and WPML.
Very good.
That's great. So the other thing is gateways, you know, and people are not aware, like it's linked to what Jackie said, that that WooCommerce out the box only supports PayPal. Is that's correct? And what are some of the better gateway plugins that you work with, folks, that work well with WooCommerce?
Well, I will jump in and say yes, that like PayPal is supported out of the box, but the Stripe extension is now free.
Yes.
So
And there was always an alternative Stripe extension that was free. So yeah, and I'd rather work with Stripe than with PayPal any day. That's not true of all my clients, but
PayPal seems the the easiest, I guess, for people that don't want to have a merchant account or do anything along those lines. But I think Stripe is probably the best way to go if you're going to have a small, to medium e-commerce business and you're using WooCommerce. I think Stripe works really well for that. I use it even with these easy digital downloads. So my store for my support and technical support and things like that with clients, I'm using easy digital downloads and I'm using the Stripe for that as well. And that works really smoothly. I don't have any problems with that. On the WooCommerce side, some of the plugins I've used for folks that want to ship products, as you know, there's a nice UPS shipping calculator plugin that will help you. Because some of the things people need to think about when you're shipping is how many things can fit in a box. So, and I learned this when I was doing my e-commerce business because we were shipping lots of products here. Some of them were lots of different sizes, and it was difficult to calculate a shipping cost because one thing may have to ship in a completely separate box. And there's like a minimum charge to ship that item. And if it's going across the country, well, you could be eating up a lot of shipping costs that you're going to have to pay for, especially if you're doing free shipping over X amount of dollars, which is pretty common for a lot of sites, So something like a UPS or a FedEx shipping calculator that can take the dimensions of products and the weights of products and approximate how many of those are going to fit in a box is really helpful. Of course, the shipment tracking for WooCommerce is a good extension that's very helpful for being able to provide a link to your customers with so they can get a status on the tracking number and where their delivery is. And then maybe printing invoices and packing slips. We've used that too to be able to facilitate that in the dashboard to be able to print that out. And that was a perfect example of the client comes back later and goes, well, where do I do this at? And you're like, okay, that's not built into the functionality. You have to get a plugin for this. And it would have been really nice. I hate to harp on this, but it would have been really nice to have a checklist in the beginning that says, what functionality are you going to need for your store? I mean, it's so simple. And I can't believe that nobody has thought of it or has implemented it yet. And I scratched my head on that. I was like,
yeah,
that is such an easy win.
Yes, it seems like it would be a good idea. I mean, I don't know how easy, if you look at the large number of WooCommerce extensions and so on, somebody does have to think a lot about how to create that questionnaire. It
wouldn't be, I'm not saying it would be easy to do it, but it would make things so easy for the customer. The user experience would be way better.
It would be a huge improvement. And I think it's a great suggestion. So I've used some of the plugins on Jackie's list. And I agree. I mean, I recently had to update somebody's USPS shipping calculator plugin. And the reason it was a pain to update was because now you have to connect to your WooCommerce account with your WordPress.com credentials. And so, and this was for my client's account, right? It's not and that was really a big pain in the patootie to do. And then, I was able to download the update, and I'm like, oh, hey, I hadn't noticed that it does like this calculating, you choose like boxes and it will calculate like what you can put in that box. That's pretty clever. And, and the client asked me about, basically adding on to shipping charges. And I said, yeah, okay, here, screenshot. here's where you can add in the like additional handling charge that you need to include in your shipping on top of just the cost of the stamp. Because yeah, you got to spend time actually putting the stuff in the box, and maybe like, you know, getting the boxes and you know, taping them up and that kind of stuff. And that's why, you know, you've got shipping and handling charges. And I think in California, the handling charge is taxable and the shipping charge is not. I can't remember offhand. So yeah, definitely those plugins are good. There's a connector for Gravity Forms that lets you, that you can use for a, you know, sort of elaborate build your own in a way to create something like Jackie's talking about for purchasing extensions, you know, where you're configuring something. And if you've ever bought a computer online, you know they have a setup like this: choose your specs, and then it, you know, adds X or subtracts Y, or, you know, and you come out with your configuration and your final price. And there was a product customizer plugin that I used on one client's site for basically what she wanted to do was let people kind of mix and match from a choice of different card designs to create a complete box of cards. And it's called something like Product Customizer for WooCommerce. I'll log into her site and look it up. It was one of those, you know, Code Canyon kinds of things. You know, so sometimes it's a, you know, it's a fairly small plugin you want where somebody can like add their gift message. And there are some free extensions for WooCommerce that are in the WordPress repo, and some of them work. There's one I looked at recently called Registrations for WooCommerce, where it will help you set something up so that, you know, you don't actually need an event plugin. You can just set up a product as a registration type product, and then it says, you know, here are your available dates or time slots. You know, since the same client does, you know, webinars and classes sometimes, you know, that seemed like a good thing to be able to, for her to be able to use.
Definitely. Those are all really good tips. The one that you're thinking of, Sallie, where there's a Gravity Forms add-on, it's called WooCommerce Gravity Forms Product Add-ons. I've actually used that before on projects, and definitely it's a way for you to add kind of modifications to a product or add-ons to a particular product. I use it for a believe it or not, like a bakery / coffee shop in this area before. Very, very useful. Some of the other ones that I've run into that are useful, and hearkening back to what Jackie said about, it would be useful to have a list of, you know, what people are going to need when it comes to product modification. A lot of that stuff seems to evolve, or they seem to think of it, you know, as time goes on, it's like, hey, it would be nice if we could do this. One of the things that I have with the current client is they have certain products where we want to offer this, but, you know, only if they buy so many. Like there's a minimum amount that they have to buy, and for that, there's hello. There's a product called WooCommerce min-max quantities, where you can set like a minimums and maximums of how many products they're allowed to buy. Another one that I have found very useful that I've used on a couple of clients is WooCommerce bulk discount. And I want to say this one's in the repo, but this one basically you can set it to where there's either like a $1 discount or a percentage discount, depending on like how many items they put in the cart. So if you want to give people a discount, say if they put like 10 items, they buy 10 of one product, and you want to give them like a 10% discount, like after that, you could use this plugin to do that. Another one that I've used before is WooCommerce Tab Manager. And that one allows you to modify your product screen, because normally there's like a product description and then there's the reviews. But this allows you to either take out those tabs or add new tabs. So you can do like a lot of like different things with that. You can have like all sorts of different tabs there. And that can come in handy sometimes. And last one I want to mention just in this little run here is one, I believe this is by Shop Plugins, Daniel Espinoza. This one's called Advanced Fees for WooCommerce. And where this comes in handy is, say you have a product that you sell, and again, this harkens back to, I have a guy who sells like plastic moldings and casings and displays and stuff like that. And he has like a promotional item that the different stores can buy, but they have to cast a plastic mold. And so it's like, we want to sell this, but tack on a fee, like a one-time fee for, you know, making the mold for them. And so with this plugin, Advanced Fees for WooCommerce, you can add like a one-time fee to any product. Say if it's, you can make a rule to where it's, if this item is in the cart, then add like this fee. So it makes it really easy to do these things where WooCommerce can't do them out of the box, but plugins do exist to be able to do these things for you.
That's the beauty of the whole plugin market, because, you know, we were talking this week earlier about, you know, hosted solutions for e-commerce and how that can really be an easy option for most people if you're, you know, if your needs are pretty basic, because you can really focus on running your business instead of configuring the website and getting your SSL and all the other parts that keep moving around that you have to try to put together. But if you want a customized solution, right, and the beauty of this is that you can easily find the pieces or build the pieces, and there's plenty of hooks and filters and things to do this yourself. If you were hiring a development team to build you an e-commerce site, that's really one of the advantages, I think, is that folks like Daniel Espinoza can, you know, write some of these really cool plugins that can provide that functionality, and then somebody else can hook those in. That you're not going to have on a hosted solution. So when you are doing your research to figure out what it is you need, those are some questions you might be asking yourself is, you know, are you going to be more of an out-of-the-box kind of a store and review the functionality that's there? It goes back to what we were just saying is, you know, what is your list? Do you need do you need to be able to offer gift wrapping? And are you going to charge for it? And do you need to, do you want to take gift cards? And, you know, all of these things need to be mapped out so that you can figure out what is the best solution and what framework and what plugins you're going to need, or should you go with a hosted solution?
Yeah, I think that's great. I just want to ask the panel, you know, lately, what another thing that in my experience comes up quite often is integration with their accountancy systems, namely a lot of the time QuickBooks. Has that come up, and are there any decent solutions at the present moment for integrating specifically WooCommerce with, let's say, QuickBooks?
There are solutions, decent. Yeah, I mean, I had a client for a little while where, yeah, that export to QuickBooks functionality was critical, and that the solution she was using for it, I was underwhelmed by. First of all, you know, the interface for their actual system looked like it was, you know, it kind of harked back to Windows 3.1. It was really clunky, and, you know, you had to set up an API endpoint within WooCommerce, and then if you used Cloudflare, it totally broke. And so, you know, it was annoying, but when it was working, it did actually, you know, it would pull in your orders to QuickBooks Online. And there are a couple of other products like that that I have not tried that looked like they might be an improvement over it.
Yeah, there's the three that are coming like right up at the top here. There's QuickBooks Online with WooCommerce, which is like a QuickBooks app. That might be what you're describing. But WooCommerce also has a QuickBooks Online integration guide, or this is a product, and it kind of shows you like step by step how to do it. That might be the same thing, actually. But Zapier also has a recipe for connecting QuickBooks and WooCommerce. There's probably no super elegant solution to this. There are ways to do it. Are they the best? Are they the most elegant and painless? Probably not. So, if that is a task that you're getting challenged with, be sure to, budget your time and resources accordingly for that.
Because I always think, I always found clients were totally gobsmacked that there wasn't, they almost expected that there would be, and it's understandable. I understand that it's kind of business reasons why this has never happened. They look at you a bit strange, but when you explain there isn't an elegant, easy way to get their accounts out of their WooCommerce solution into QuickBooks.
Well, yeah, I mean, and like I said, I think that's expectation with software, and maybe that's just the expectation is everything is easy and there's always a solution that's just quick and painless, and it's just not always the case. So
I don't know why anybody would expect that from any software ever.
It's true.
So true.
that's
What do you
good
reckon,
we
John? Do you think we should wrap this show up? I think we can have some extensive show notes, folks, and we've gone through a few plugins, haven't we, John?
Yeah, and definitely we could go on and on. I mean, and most of the focus is on WooCommerce, but definitely, if like I said, give iThemes Exchange a look if you're dealing in both digital and physical goods. If you're just selling digital downloads, look at Easy Digital Downloads. If you're doing primarily physical goods, then WooCommerce is probably a good bet for you. But definitely, we could go on and on with extensions just for each of these for sure. So the next episode that we're going to have, we're going to be talking with Jonathan Courtney. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, cool. He's a UX designer, so be sure to tune in for that one. Everybody, how do we find you, and what do you want to promote? Jackie?
You can find me on Twitter at jdelia or on my website at jackiedelia.com. And next month, Rethink Season 2 will start, so you can check out new episodes coming up on rethink.fm.
Excellent. Sallie, anything you want to promote? And how do we find you?
You can find me at WP-Fangirl.com, or I am at Sallie Goetsch on Twitter, and you can check out the East Bay WordPress meetup at eastbaywp.com. I'm going to be upgrading the theme and integrating the free copy of Event Aggregator that Modern Tribe offers to meetup groups.
Ooh, very good. Jonathan, how do we get a hold of you?
Oh, before that, I just love GoDaddy, folks. I think they're the greatest hosting provider ever thought of for their technical support. I take anything that I've ever said against GoDaddy.
Newsflash, GoDaddy acquires WP-Tonic.
Not in my dreams. I take it all back. I was a sinner and I've reformed my ways, folks. But to be serious, you can get a hold of me, John, on Twitter at Jonathan Denwood. Or you can email me at jonathan@wp-tonic.com.
Excellent. And you can find me at my website, which is lockdowndesign.com. You can follow me on Twitter, lockdown_, and my Facebook page is facebook.com/lockdowndesign. For the WP Tonic Posse, we're saying peace out, and join us each Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time if you want to ask us a question live. There you go. See you later.
Bye.